friends, Amanda here. Welcome back to Handmade Now Hallmark. I have yet another card for my love themed series. This one is super sweet and super simple. I was planning on turning this card into a shaker, but I just loved the end product that I didn't want to distract away from the beautiful background stamp and ink blending with some shaker bits. This card is super simple and super easy. Let's get into it. I'm going to be using the Lined Hearts background stamp, the Just Because die, and the Sweet Hearts stamp set for my greeting. Again, this card came together super easy. I was just looking through my products and I saw that I had this lined stamp that I haven't used yet, and I thought I want to try to do a rainbow ink blending. I don't do a whole lot of rainbow ink blending because I always end up messing it up and it gets really muddy, but I recently saw a video. I think it was Laura Fedora did it. It was from a few months ago, but it was new to me. And she did a beautiful ink blending with some colors. And I didn't have exactly the same colors, but I kind of got close and I wanted to try it out on my own. And I just loved how it looked that I didn't want to cover it up with anything. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to stamp this down using some clear ink from Simon because I want to I want to heat emboss the lined hearts so that they show up underneath the ink blending, so kind of doing a ink resist sort of technique. And it's going to be really hard to see because I am using some white embossing powder onto this white cardstock. This is actually some Bristol Smooth cardstock. It is my preferred cardstock for ink blending just because everything is nice and smooth. It has that nice smooth coating on it, so the ink kind of glides right over top of it. You can see all those beautiful lined hearts, and I just love how this looks. And I'm just going to heat it up with my heat gun until everything is nice and smooth and melted, and we'll get right into the ink blending. I'm going to start my ink blending off with some KITSCH Flamingo Distress ink. I'm going to use Distress Oxide inks for all of my ink blending because I wanted it to be really nice and soft. I feel like pastel colors kind of lend more towards kind of a romancy kind of feeling. This isn't necessarily a romance card or, for a significant other. It could be for anybody. So I'm going in, like I said, with the KITSCH Flamingo, and then I'm coming in with Mustard Seed. I probably got a little bit too heavy-handed with the yellow color here. Again, I don't do a whole lot of rainbow ink blending, but I just stuck with it. I almost gave up on it and started over. But I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stick in it. I'm going to keep going. It may not be exactly perfect, but the end product I absolutely loved. I loved how it turned out. I probably would go with a different blue next time. The speckled egg is really pretty, but I don't think it picked up the colors for, kind of where they kind of meet. So where the KITSCH Flamingo and the speckled egg meet, they didn't really make as much of an intense purple color that I was going for. And the same with the yellow. It got green, but it didn't get as green as I was hoping. But again, I still could see the rainbow and I still love the way that it turned out. So I just kind of went back and forth until I was happy with the ink blending. And once I was happy with it, I went over it with a dry cloth to kind of rub away where it sits on top of that embossing, and you can see that those hearts really pop off of there once that is all done. And I'm going to set it off and let it kind of air dry a little bit, help the colors kind of blend a little bit more. And I'm going to work on my greeting. I took the Just Because die from Simon and I die cut it out of some 120-pound cardstock from Simon in white, and then I also cut it out of some glitter cardstock from my stash. And I'm just going to stack these up together. And I love this Just Because die because you can use it for anything. It works for any season at all. You just throw this on whatever kind of card you're making and change the greeting on the inside, and you've got a card for any occasion whatsoever, which I think is fantastic. So here you can see that glitter cardstock. I wanted to have something nice and shiny on it since I decided to keep the rest of it pretty plain at this point. Like I said, I was planning on doing a, one of those flat shakers, edge to edge shakers, which are really popular right now. But I just love the way that it looked so simple. I don't really do a whole lot of simple kind of, I guess this would be considered a clean and simple card, just because I like to add a bunch to things. I like to kind of overindulge, but I loved the soft nature of the blending that I just wanted to keep it nice and sweet and simple. Once I had all of those stacked on top of each other, I also cut the kind of shadow bubble out of some nice heavy vellum. This is also from Simon, and I think it really helps kind of make the greeting pop off the back. Not that it kind of hides it or anything, but I really like using vellum. I really think it kind of adds to the kind of soft feel that I was going for. Get that all nice and lined up, and I just love that glittery greeting. So pretty. This cardstock cut like a dream as well. Next thing I was going to do is I was going to create a secondary greeting. I wanted it to go on the front, but I decided to put it on the inside just because I didn't really like the way that it was laying on the front. Felt like it kind of really didn't go with it. So I stamped it down using the same Simon Says clear ink and the same Brutus Monroe alabaster white embossing powder onto some black cardstock. Get that stamped down, and it says, "I love your heart." So this could, again, be for any occasion. It could, just be a, "Hey, I'm thinking of you." It could be just because I love your heart, making somebody feel better. I got that heated up and cut it out with the coordinating dies. And now I'm going to be a glutton for punishment here, and I'm going to add thin strips of foam tape behind this entire greeting. I wanted it to be popped up a bit more. Why? At first, it was because I wanted to get that greeting to go on the front. I wanted it to kind of tuck underneath. I ended up not putting it on the front, so I could have just glued this flat down, but I do like the dimension that it gives. Kind of pops it off that background, makes it stand out just a little bit more. And again, I, kind of punishing myself a little bit here with all those little bits of foam tape, but it wasn't really that hard. It was just a little bit time consuming. So you don't necessarily have to do this step. You could just stack up more pieces of cardstock, or you could just adhere it nice and flat. Either way, it's going to look nice. Get all that extra foam tape removed off the back, and we'll get this adhered. And I realized after a bit that I didn't adhere it quite even, so I do trim it down a little bit later. And this is where I was kind of fiddling around with that greeting, where I wanted to put it on the front, but I wasn't liking how it looked. It just stood out way too much with that soft background, and I'm really, really glad that I didn't adhere it to the front. I think it really kind of took away from the whole vibe I was going for, so I just decided to put it on the inside of the card. So I'm going to take my card base, which is a Simon Says 120 pound card base that I have cut to a top folding A2 sized card, and I'm going to put it on the inside. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take that same lined stamp, and I'm going to just lay it flat here on my base, or my tabletop, and I'm going to stamp on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tape off that seam just so I don't get any ink transferred over there, and I'm going to take those same Distress Oxide inks and I'm going to use those to stamp with, just to kind of bring it all together. Again, I probably used too much yellow, like I always do, but I like how it looks. I think it looks really sweet and kind of ties everything in together. Kind of bringing out my inner Amy Rasavi. She inspires all of us all the time. I love watching her videos, and I pick up lots of tips and tricks from her. So thanks for all the tips and tricks. This works out beautifully, and I love the way that it looked. Just going to hit that with my heat gun real quick, just because it is a pigment ink and I didn't want any transfer. Get it nice and dry. And I'm going to take that greeting that I cut out earlier, and I'm just going to adhere it to the inside. Again, this could be a card front. Again, another simple card. And I'm just going to adhere my panel here to the front, but this is where I noticed that it wasn't quite centered, and it was bugging me a little bit. So I took out my little Tim Holtz trimmer here, and I just trimmed down a little bit around the sides. It will leave a nice white border, but I like to kind of bring the white in from the white embossing so it kind of all goes together, and this little trimmer is perfect for this. I got it to fit right underneath there, and I think it turned out great. Going to use some liquid glue to attach that down. Again, you could pop this up with some more foam tape if you wanted, but I like the nice flat. And then that nice white frame around it, I think really kind of finishes it off. And this is where I was like, I'm so glad I didn't turn this into a shaker. The last thing I did is I decided to add just a little bit of embellishment with some Morning Dew crystal drops. These will dry nice and clear. They won't be too in your face. I think it's nice and subtle. Just adds a little bit of pop to the card, a little bit more kind of interest. And that will finish up this card for today. I really hope you enjoyed this simple card featuring some ink blending and a little bit of die cutting. If you liked the video, hit that like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here on my YouTube channel. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to share the next one with you. I'll see you again soon. Bye!
On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more videos at my YouTube channel.